Every day, 2 million coins are made here at the Australian Mint. They've made 15 billion in that little room.
Over here to the right, we've got the Melbourne building, and to the left, we've got the Sydney building.
I was just explaining to the boys about how the first parliament was actually in Melbourne, but people in Sydney weren't happy with it, so they moved it here, and that's why there aren't a lot of old buildings. And they all saw those buildings and said, hang on, there's one, and sure enough, they're called Melbourne and Sydney. So Canberra was set up between Melbourne and Sydney to hold parliament because the Sydney siders weren't happy with parliament being down in Melbourne, which was pretty wealthy at the time. We're just passing by Parliament House now, so this is our first glimpse, boys.
There it is.
We're in Canberra, baby.
There's the flag. A flag.
Here it is. I'm excited about this one. I'm a politics nerd. Love watching the elections. We're going inside Parliament House. You can get tickets to question time online from the Sergeant of Arms office. You can just apply and they're free. We've got them to the last parliamentary sitting day of the year on Thursday, last question time. Tomorrow's the last day, so we get to go along there. But there's also free tours throughout the day. You can just jump on one and learn more about Parliament House.
We're inside the Parliament House.
So there's a great hall there. We're going to do a bit of a walk around. We're going to do a self-guided tour. You can actually do a guided tour. The next one's not till 1 o'clock, so we've grabbed the map. We're going to go wandering through. There's some kids tours that Steph's getting now. Then we're going to head up, walk around, go through the upper house, lower house, and you can go wherever you like. It's a people's house.
We've picked up some kids' scavenger hunt booklets from the information centre. So there's actually a stack of information in them and things for the kids to find. So far, Harry's super engaged again, like he has been recently, with any of the kids' booklets. And there's been some interesting things to find that we might have otherwise missed. What does it look like?
That looks like a shell.
That's a
But
shell.
that was the one we were meant to look for. That's a prawn.
Sean the prawn.
See, it's a prawn, so little eye and then his little shark thing. Then he goes around with his little legs.
That one's in your book, isn't it?
People just walking. What's it? That might have been a nautilus. That looks like a shell.
Well, what's this page about?
Lego.
Lego at Parliament House.
Wow.
What does it say?
What does it take to build a replica of Australia's Parliament House in Lego? A lot of patience, a whopping 750 hours, more than 158,000 pieces of Lego, someone who knows what they're doing. That is Mr. Lego himself, the Brickman.
The Brickman made it.
Wow, there's evil guys, is there? No, there is evil guys. That's a bit over the top. They've got some warriors.
100 on note tree!
I didn't see that in Parliament. All the baddies are in the Senate, apparently. Oh, look at this. There's all Lego. Prime Minister arriving. His motorcade. The front of Parliament House.
Brickman went a bit over the top with the bad guys and zombies and all the money down there. I didn't see those before.
Money tree.
$100 note tree. And since the Batman come to Parliament House.
Wow.
Yeah, since when did Batman come?
Not today.
$2,700 clocks in Parliament, so the politicians all know exactly what the time is if they need to be anywhere.
We're going to head into the House of Reps. Jed, what do we need to look for in the House of Representatives?
We need to look for where the different people stand. So this morning we got some videos, so I know that the speaker goes there already.
Okay.
And the Sergeant of Arms would go, so I think, around here.
Okay, so we'll look for those in Parliament this morning. We have to check our bags and cameras and phones and everything in before we go into the Parliament session, so we won't have those with us to film in there, but we'll tell you about it after.
We are just coming up on the roof here. So when you come to Parliament, you can come right up on the roof under the spire and look out over Canberra. pretty cool experience. Even if you're not into politics, just coming to see something like this to learn more about how our government works is pretty important. And we're going to get to go to question time this afternoon, which is going to be even better, with a full house. So where we were just before, inside the lower house and the upper house, the Senate and the House of Reps, was pretty empty. They're just doing some statements and bill discussions. But this afternoon for question time, it's going to be pretty full on and packed. We can't show you question time, but we can do, like we did in one of our very first videos, a reenactment in Lego. So we're going to be sitting up here during question time, and it's when all the ministers come in and are subject to questions and discussion with a full house. That's what we're doing this afternoon. This is just looking at the role of each of the upper and lower houses. So an idea for a bill or a law goes through the House of Representatives, then it goes to the Senate, and then after that it has to go through a legal process that ultimately ends with the Governor-General signing off and putting it into law for the government to then enforce. It's been good for the boys learning about this sort of stuff.
I've discovered that in the Senate there's a coat of arms that sits behind the Prime Minister's chair, but the kangaroo and emu, instead of facing each other, for once here, they're looking out over the Senate to look as though they're listening. Today I've discovered that there's two of the Senates, and that one can hold 150 people and the other can hold 70 people.
So one is called the Senate and the other is called the House
Of Representatives. I've discovered that politicians make laws to help people.
We just spent the last hour 10 in question time, and it was really cool. The kids are laughing the whole way through. The government were going through different points of order and questions, and the opposition were hammering them. It's been a good learning experience. The kids are laughing their way through it. It's not as boring as you might think. It was quite entertaining. We had to go though. They were starting to get itchy feet after an hour, 15 minutes sitting there watching people yell and argue at each other. It's been a great experience overall though, and well worth a visit to Parliament. We're at the Royal Australian Mint. This time for reals. We did the Perth Mint. This time we're going to go see where circulated money's made.
The boys have been given some Spotto books again. There's a lot in this one, Jed, to look for.
Found that in the front. That's like
found that?
hundreds of dollars. Just lying there in the front in a little dome. There's a big bucket that's overflowing with $1.
It tells you on the next page how much is in it. Have a look. Right here.
Got the dome filled with coins. There are 24,999 $1 coins in the dome.
It's a bit more than hundreds.
Yes, which years were they made in? Oh,
You'll have to look for that when we go back down.
In Victoria, so people found some gold just lying around in creeks, and so a gold rush started. People came flocking down from all around Australia to get their hands on it, and they thought, hey, what are we going to do with all this? And then they thought, let's make coins. And so they started making a $2,000 gold coin worth 5 cents and 5 pounds and all that. So
Didn't make a lot of sense, because what do people start doing with the gold?
stealing it.
Because
So
it's worth more?
People from other countries started coming down to Australia, stealing our coins, taking it off, selling it and making $2,000.
We've just learnt the history of Australian coins and how we came to actually have a currency. And it began all the way back in colonisation when the convicts arrived over here, and it was very quickly realised that there was no currency in Australia, nothing to trade. The soldiers began, I guess, an undercover kind of trade, and they were trading using rum. However, when the authorities found out...
Our currency was literally alcohol.
It was.
Australia.
However, I guess the people at the top found out and didn't like that, so they put a stop to that one, put a ban, and again there was no currency. They asked Britain multiple times for coins, however Britain wasn't able to spare very many. At one stage they sent 10,000 over, but that wasn't enough. So they went elsewhere, and they basically started getting coins from all over the world, but then there was no way to compare their value, so they had all sorts of different issues and challenges. Hi.
Hey.
Finally, they ended up getting a coin from Spain, which was a big one like this, and they found out that one of their convicts had actually been sent to Australia for forging coins, so they could put his skills to good use. And what he did was he punched out the hole in the centre, thank you Alex,
You better go get that dump piece.
and made 2 coins from one. So there was the dump and the holy dollar.
Dump.
Enough for everybody.
The holy dollar today
Our first
is
real currency.
50 cents. and the dump is 15 cents. So that was our first real currency here in Australia, and it all progressed on from there until in 1913 Britain gave permission for Australia to start their own mint and began minting their own British currency, which happened all the way through until 1966 when we produced our own first Australian decimal currency. The boys are paying for some items using both a mixture of pounds, shillings and pence and dollars and cents. We're not sure exactly what the equivalents are, but it's telling us when we've got enough there to pay. And there was a few years that I think there was actually a changeover period that people could use either of the amounts, and it was displayed in both the imperial currency and the decimal currency.
Here goes the blank, 100, 200 tons of pressure to engrave that image onto that blank coin. We do roughly 11 coins per second, 650 per minute, 2 to 2.9 million a day in a small minting period if we have to.
In 1966, they started producing coins at the Australian Mint from here, and every single coin that you've ever had in your wallet or in your hand has come out of this small room, and there's just 4 people working on the floor. The rest of it is robots like this guy. These are some of the blanks that get imported in giant barrels, and then what happens to them, Jed?
They get put inside a coin press, and then they put tons and tons of pressure on them, then it prints in the coin.
Alright, so the boys are going to mint their own coins with the machine here. I'm not sure about the economy on this, but we'll do it for the experience. We're putting in $3 up the top, and we're going to make a $1 coin. Alright, it's coming.
So it's turning, then goes.
Stamps it out.
Stamps it. I'm not going to touch mine.
Al's come prepared with a pack of tissues in
You're
your
not
pocket.
meant to touch it, because if you don't touch it, it's worth $8.
Alright.
Touch it.
A lot to see here at the Mint, the Australian Mint, and lots to do as well. The kids are just doing some activities. They've done a spotto or a find quiz, and we're just learning about all the different ways currency has impacted on our society here in Australia. We haven't seen anything like this yet, even though we visited the Perth Mint, which mainly does the decorative coins. This is all about the circulated currency.
There's a lot to see and do here in Canberra for families. Yesterday we had an awesome day out at Parliament House. Today we've spent the morning at the Royal Australian Mint, and now we're on the way to Questacon. So we're covering our maths and science. Did some journal writing this morning, so we're all good for the day in terms of our schooling. Let's go and have a bit of fun, hey?
Yeah. Yay.
We're heading into Questacon, but I wanted to give you a little tip. If you're travelling Australia, it's highly likely that you're homeschooling your kids or that they're through distance education, in which case you're eligible to get one of these. This is a teacher's pass just for Canberra. However, you can get it for homeschooling as well, and what that has meant is that we can get into a stack of places in Canberra for free, and it's for our whole family. So we're going into Questacon now, which would otherwise have been $70 for our family, but we're going to walk through the door with this card, save that money and have that to put towards something else obviously, but there's a heap of other places that have discounts and stuff as well, so well worth looking up the Canberra Teachers Pass if you're visiting and you're homeschooling, because it'll save you a ton of cash and mean that you can go to these places that you might not otherwise have. Let's go.
There's a series of exhibits here at Questacon, and you sort of work your way around them. The first one we've gone into is about robots. We actually did quite a bit of robots when we were in Japan. We went to their science museum, which is pretty cool. The kids enjoyed that, so we're going to have a look at what they've got here to offer us.
Robots has gone very far in time. Like, we've got clutches originally, then this is for walking, then we've got a running one here. This and that's a running one.
Oh look, building a robotic arm with a hand on it too. It's better than a hook, isn't it?
I like a hook with a hand.
Hey Jed, why is this one here better for running?
Because it's more flexible, so then when you're running, it'll press down more to give you more like a jumping boost.
Awesome Earth.
This is a very cool representation of the periodic table of elements. Such a great way for the kids to see what they actually are instead of just, I guess, letters on a sheet. And it's relevant because when we were at the Mint just before, we were talking about how lots of coins are made out of a combination of copper and iron. And then we can see the coins in there as a perfect example.
Heaps of coins. There.
So these materials, these metals are all used to make coins.
There. Oh, no, not there.
There we go.
Show me. Alright guys, let's do the test. Whoa, Harry! That went all the way to the roof. Oh, you lost the jet! Whoa, look at this. You come down. You come out. Let's go into this crazy place. Let's go.
That's fun.
Oh! Al's trying to beat the robot. Robot 2, human 1. Oh, he's good. Oh, nearly.
We're coming into the National War Memorial. Everyone said to us that you need 1 or 2 days here. We've left ourselves an afternoon, but we'll see how we go getting through. Our plan is to spend some time actually in the memorial itself, and then at 4:55 each day they have a last post ceremony, so we'll join in that ceremony before we head off this afternoon.
Wow. This is Lone Pine, depiction of the war efforts, looking for a crucial victory. Alex is just looking into the detail of Lone Pine.
This
And-
guy has just popped up and he's getting freshened straight away.
Yeah, so
And
the
then-
Turkish,
That's right now.
yeah, the Turkish went underneath the ground, and so the Battle of Lone Pine, once they got there, they had to fight with the Turks underground, and eventually won, although 2,000 people died in the battle. And originally designed as a tactic to distract the Turks, this ended up being a key piece of the war.
We can send that to him.
Wow,
And
just like
We
that.
found it really helps the kids to relate to what has happened when they can actually do a bit of a case study, I guess, on one particular soldier. So in this one, Harry is learning about Lieutenant Harry Edwards, and it's got some more information over here about him. Harry, what was he known for?
Known for being really brave and stuff.
Really brave, yeah, and he kept his cool. So it really helps the kids to be able to relate to what's happening when they're learning about one person in particular. And that's the same approach that was taken at the Anzac Centre in Albany as well. If you saw our video on that one, where we studied one person throughout our visit to the centre.
Go through the exhibit, it takes you on the timeline of our involvement from our first forces arriving in Gallipoli all the way through, essentially, to World War II and beyond.
God, they might have just stuck under.
These panoramas are so realistic. You can just imagine what it was like to be there, taking in the scenery, what's happening with the men, the surrounding scene with the injured people.
It'd be really hard. Just have to walk past your friends that are dead.
Yeah. It's terrible, it's very hard work.
There's cars and handcuffs in World War II, which wasn't invented in World War I, so it's not so easy to go around.
In 1941, the HMAS Sydney was lost in a battle off the west coast of Australia. We went and visited the memorial in Geraldton when we were there. We actually have a family member who was lost on the Sydney, so this is something that's very relevant for us, and we're always looking for information or for remembrance of the Sydney. So when you come here to the War Memorial, there's so much information and relics from so many of the battles. If you've got a personal connection, then there's often something that you can discover here. So this one here is the first time that we've seen this lifeboat that is one of the only relics from the Sydney battle.
So Germany and Italy wanted to re-establish themselves as prominent European powerhouses. Japan were more opportunistic, and they wanted more land, they wanted more control, and they wanted to take over the Pacific. So they bombed the US and Pearl Harbor, getting the United States involved, and they started to raid into all these Asian territories around the Pacific, and there were really heavy fears that Australia was next to be invaded by the Japanese. Australia were involved in both parts of the war, here trying to repel the Japanese, and also over in Europe trying to defeat Nazi Germany, and as well as Mussolini from fascist Italy. The end of the Europe part of World War II came when Allied nations essentially occupied Germany, pushing back the Germans to their own country. That got a surrender happening, and it was finished for Europe. Victory over Japan in the Pacific actually came 4 or 5 months later, after fighting Japan back to Japan. They wouldn't surrender, they wouldn't give up, and it took a couple of atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, before the Japanese finally said, okay, we surrender.
This is a submarine. You found something? I found a ship.
Oh, do you think it's a submarine?
No, it's a ship.
So we're on a submarine?
Yeah, we're in a submarine. I can see a ship though. See? It's coming towards us. See? Flip. Switching on. This is a ship.
Discovery zone, you can actually see what it was like in First World War, going in the trenches.
This is World War I, so the kids are able to get into the trenches here and experience what it might have been like.
The boys are in peacekeeping times at the moment, building a bridge to get the villagers through and finding landmines that have been planted in the fields. We're in the conflicts of today section, so we're seeing some of the modern jobs and battles and things that we've done. Sound and light shows you can go and listen to throughout the day. Some are on the hour, some are quarter past. This one here is a helicopter assault in the Vietnamese War, the Battle of South and North Vietnam. Tomb of the unknown soldier from World War I. And we're just looking inside. It's a beautiful work of art. Steph's great uncle here, Thomas McGowan. So, from the HMAS Sydney that was down off the coast. We're on the road to Gundagai, but more so the road to Melbourne. We're heading back to Melbourne.
We're going to cross the border today, back in Victoria.
We haven't been to Victoria since December 2018 with the van.
Except a little flight back.
With the van.
Yeah, with the van. Yeah. Here we go. Melbourne or Sydney, boys? Which way?
Melbourne. Melbourne. Not Sydney. Don't go.
Boys are looking forward to going to Melbourne.
Don't go. Don't go.